Hello, today I want to talk about a couple of different builds for Frost DK and PvP on the Shadowlands pre-patch and in Shadowlands. This video is coming a little bit later than I had anticipated. I got into the Shadowlands beta and I've just been going crazy testing everything I can and just PvPing my butt off. So I wanted to come back here and bring you guys what I found and go over these builds because they're very interesting, and like I said, these are going to be very useful not only in the pre-patch but also in Shadowlands. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. But first, a word from our sponsor, my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/XodasWow. Come hang out and enjoy two-hand Frost DK PvP on the Shadowlands beta while we have fun and discuss everything Death Knight. I stream every Wednesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. See you there. So first off, we have the Hypothermic Presence build. This build is pretty much the same as our normal build, and for this video we're going to be focusing specifically on what's actually different from what we would normally do. And so the highlight of this build is of course the new Hypothermic Presence ability. What this ability does is it reduces the cost of our runic power spending abilities, and this means that you can get a ton more done in a shorter period of time, whether it's defensively using your Lichborn and getting more death coils off. This will let you get a couple of extra death coils off, and this is how you see us Frost DKs on the PTR in the Shadowlands healing easily for our entire health bar using Lichborn. You can also pair it with transfusion to get more death strikes off in a shorter period of time during that transfusion window, which is absolutely massive. Offensively, specifically in PvE, we don't really use it too offensively in PvP at the moment. It just doesn't really pay off. It's better to save it defensively. But in PvE, pairing it with Breath of Sindragosa is really powerful and will let you get a very long Breath of Sindragosa. But back to PvP, and especially away from Breath of Sindragosa. Hypothermic Presence is amazing. I actually just macro it directly into the Lichborn macro, directly into Transfusion. It's off the global cooldown, and it is an absolute game changer for just getting more healing out. It is very much a necessity in the PTR, very much a necessity in the current meta of Shadowlands, where we have very low health pools, very high damage. This means that we need to be able to respond very quickly with very strong healing, and Hypothermic Presence really makes that possible. Our next build, which is very interesting, is actually using Glacial Advance, which is on the same talent row as Hypothermic Presence, which means you can't take these together. It means you have to choose one or the other, and as we just covered, Hypothermic Presence is a very defensive play style. So where does Glacial Advance fall into this? What makes it compete with Hypothermic Presence? First off, Glacial Advance isn't anything new. We've had it for a very long time, but nobody's ever taken it because it's expensive, it does less damage than Frost Strike, and it's always said that it gives you a stack of Razor Ice, but it's really never worked the way that you would hope for it to work to really make it an ability worth using. Well, in the Shadowlands pre-patch and beyond, they have actually fixed this. It still doesn't do as much damage single target wise as a Frost Strike. It is still a little expensive to use in comparison to a Frost Strike, and it still has a cooldown on it. However, it does work to give you Razor Ice stacks. So what does this mean? Well, this means that you can actually keep Razor Ice up as a two-hand Frost DK, and we actually take it a little bit further. Not only can you keep stacks up and apply them with your Glacial Advance, if you start your battle off dual wielding two weapons with Razor Ice on them, then what will happen? Two obliterates with two weapons with Razor Ice on them will give you a guaranteed 5 stacks of Razor Ice. So what we do, this is something that actually my friend Hazzed came up with, huge shout out to him, link to his channel down in the description below if you want to see more Frost DK content. He came up with this and it's absolutely nuclear. So Razor Ice of course increases our frost damage by 15% baseline. So what we're doing is he's created a macro, it's a cast sequence macro, and it casts 2 obliterates followed by swapping your weapon out to your two-hand weapon with your Fallen Crusader on it. So what we're doing is we are running into the battle, whether it's PvE or PvP, and we're opening up with having our dual wield weapons on with those 2 Razor Ices, and we just hit the macro. It casts 2 obliterates on the target, and then it automatically swaps your weapon out, and because of the macro, you don't incur the global cooldown on your weapon swap. It's a little bit of a bug / maybe intended, not really sure, but anyways, it will swap your weapon out literally the moment after the last obliterate lands. This does not incur a global cooldown, and it guarantees you 5 procs of Razor Ice, or 5 stacks. From there, all you have to do is maintain it by hitting your target with Glacial Advance every now and again. This is huge. This is 15% increased frost damage, and this is great in Shadowlands because everything does frost damage, including our obliterates when used with a killing machine proc, and it's super good in PTR because, well, more damage is just good. The meta is completely bursty. So ultimately what we're seeing is there's 2 different ways to play your Frost DK right now. You can either lean really hard into doing as much offensive pressure as quickly as possible. It does come with a little bit of a setup time because you have to get those obliterates out, and then once you got your stacks and you swapped your weapon, then you start bursting. This is the Glacial Advance build. Or if you want to go for a more defensive build to try and last a little bit longer and to not lean so heavily into doing nuclear damage, especially for those of you who may not be super geared going into the pre-patch, this is going to be very important, and that is the Hypothermic build. Hypothermic Presence absolutely makes your Lichborn and your transfusion healing windows massive. It is a night and day difference, and I wouldn't recommend using Hypothermic Presence offensively in PvP, regardless of really how you play, unless you're using Breathless and Dragosa. What's nice about Hypothermic Presence is because it's 45-second cooldown, you can pretty much open up with a transfusion right off the gate in a duel. If you're dueling, let's say, a Fury Warrior on the pre-patch, where they have a lot of outward pressure, they have a lot of consistent healing, and basically you just heal right through their opener. By the time your transfusion is done, you probably have already survived their main burst, and now it's time for you to counter burst, and that's when you, of course, use your Lichborn. As I said numerous times, always pair your Lichborn with your burst for the maximum healing potential. So you open up the transfusion, you defend yourself through their burst. The moment their burst is done, you probably are going to be at around 50 to 60% health, and this is when you come in with the Lichborn and all your burst, and you go ham. Whenever that ends, by then, your transfusion and your Hypothermic Presence are going to be coming off cooldown very soon. So you take it a little bit, and ultimately you're just playing long game. You're just cycling the cooldowns, and Hypothermic Presence is there for you every single go. So dependent on which way you want to play your Frost DK, dependent on what kind of gear you have, if you are very high geared, then you may want to lean heavier into the burst way. If you are not so well geared, then you may want to lean heavier into defensive. If you have been playing dual wield Frost DK and BFA and you have a very high mastery build and you don't really have many options to change that, then Glacial Advance is going to work very well for you, because once again, mastery equals frost damage and Glacial Advance equals more frost damage. So you're just like, you're tripling down on it, you know, you're tripling down on that giant frost damage. Ultimately, both of these builds are very good. Right now, currently in Shadowlands, I am running the Hypothermic Presence build for 2s, where my own personal survivability is a bit more important. And then in 3s, when I have a healer that I know is actually going to cleanse me and keep me alive, then I like to go the Glacial Advance build for that nuclear output, and it really makes a very big, well, 15% of a difference, and it is very interesting. But ultimately, if you don't want to run a Glacial Advance build, then don't worry, because Hypothermic is absolutely amazing. You just may want to pick a little bit more offensive PvP traits or trinkets in order to actually, you know, increase your damage through other means. Whereas with Glacial Advance, you're oftentimes going for more defensive PvP talents and more defensive trinkets to offset the kind of glass cannon-y effect that you get from running Glacial Advance. Those are definitely what I've found to be the most useful and practical ways of playing these 2 builds. I hope you have fun trying out these different builds. Let me know what you think about them in the comments section down below. Hit that like button if you liked the video. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more Frost DK content from the Shadowlands beta. And make sure that you ring that bell notification so you get notified every time I upload a video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. day.